Welcome, my emerging expat. You're tuned in to Let's Move to Portugal. I'm producer Victoria, and I have the distinct honor of bringing you YouTube travelers and our resident of Portugal experts, ExpatsEverywhere's Josh and Kalie. Each week they'll inspire, they'll educate, and they'll accompany you on your journey to Portuguese residency. This week on Let's Move to Portugal, Kalie interviews Diogo, an immigration lawyer, about recent changes in immigration policies in Portugal. Learn what he has to say about the government's new action plan for the immigration processes.
Hey expats and travelers alike, welcome back to the Expats Everywhere presents Let's Move to Portugal podcast. Kalie, how ya doing?
Ooh, with a little pizzazz there.
A little flair.
Yeah.
Season 3, you know.
Oh, okay. Just keeping it real. I am doing well. I mean, same, I guess. Like nothing. Well, I guess that's not true. There's a lot to report, I suppose. But as far as like how I'm doing, I think I'm always say I'm doing well, and I'm doing well this time too. What about you?
Doing well as well.
Yeah.
I'm doing fairly good. And we have a lot to talk about that kind of has changed bureaucratically or is changing bureaucratically in Portugal. But obviously, before we get to that, the format of this is we chat a bit about what's going on in our lives, what's going on in the world of expats everywhere, what's going on in Portugal. And where else to start but the fact that this weekend was a bad weekend for Portugal when it comes to sports.
Sad.
Bad, sad, I'm mad. So if you don't know, the European Championships are going on. It happens every 4 years. It happens the 2 years in between World Cups. And these are the major competitions. And then also there's this competition called Copa America. And that happens in South America. But why is that important? It's because Brazil plays in that. And there are a lot of Brazilians that are here. So Portugal crashed out of the competition in the quarterfinals against France. Yes, against France.
On penalties.
On penalty kicks.
Mm-hmm.
So Ronaldo's international career might be over. That's in the balance. And
just because he's getting older, not because of anything else. But
he's getting old. Don't tell him that.
Or Portuguese, I suppose. He's a bit polarizing,
they know
He's a bit polarizing, I think, at this point.
Yeah, he's Marmite for some people.
Yeah.
And then you have Brazil, which crashed out also in the quarterfinals against Uruguay, the team that the U.S. lost out to.
Also on penalties. So, yeah,
yes.
Rough.
Rough.
A bad way to lose.
Yeah, so kind of everyone woke up on Sunday and was just like, meh.
It was a weekend of mourning, I guess.
Yes, it was. All right, so what's happening in the world of expats everywhere?
Well, we have a great video that we put out this past weekend with Angie. She's so well-spoken.
Yeah.
Like just the way that she was able to articulate her thoughts and feelings about Portugal. She's been here almost a year. She joked that the paperwork is still going on.
It never ends.
It never ends.
Is what she said, yeah.
Yeah, which is so true. There always seems to be something. But she has moved with a family, and so there's that dynamic. But, yeah, she just has a lot going on. She was able to kind of talk about the struggles.
Yeah, for sure. I put chapters in those as well because I know that some people that are listening don't have a family, don't have kids, and she does talk a bit about kids. So if you want to get the information from Angie, but you don't have kids and don't find that relevant, you can just skip that part. But I do think it's important because a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot, some people reach out to us saying like, hey, why don't you do more about kids? Or talk about that. But it's really difficult to make a full video on that because it doesn't really hit the bulk of our audience. However, when we interview people with kids, they're always slipping in nuggets. And if you're doing your homework, if you're doing your research on moving to Portugal, then you kind of have to consume a lot of content. It's not as easy as just, keywords and searches and getting, the exact answers. We try to bring a lot of real people to you so that you have multiple inputs.
Right. And she talks a lot about online schooling, learning through online and, how kids learn differently. So when she's talking about the kids part, if you do have kids or are moving with them, then it's good information. But like Josh said, if you don't, then you don't have to worry about listening to that. You can skip through because there's definitely relevant stuff for any stage of life.
Yep.
So that's a good one.
Another thing is for people who have been following the vertical community venture that has morphed into a YouTube channel called Let's Get Building with Josh and Kalie. We have put out episode 3. That video is actually performing really well, at least among our returning viewers.
So thank you for that.
Thank you. Yes, it's not really hit the broader YouTube community yet, but yeah.
So you can follow along the process there. Things are going well. And then also we've dabbled a bit with shorts, right? Shorts on YouTube.
Yes.
Not the shorts you wear, but the short
I'm wearing
video
shorts
form. Good.
You'll never know unless I stand up, but I'm not going to.
So the one who's just, if you're just listening on like Spotify or something, then you'll never know either. But if you're watching on YouTube, then if Josh stands up, you would know. But the shorts that are short form videos, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about the...
And how are they shot?
They're shot vertical. I don't know if anyone has noticed, but my first 4 days were not in there because I was shooting it horizontal. Because with videos, we have to shoot horizontally, and Josh pounded that in my head a long time ago. And then all of a sudden, now we've tried this, and shorts should be, vertical up and down, and I was shooting it the wrong way. Yes. Also, too, I missed one day because we had a friend visiting, and we already had something planned. But what we're shooting about is the online Portuguese class that we're taking.
Yeah.
So we're getting our A2 certification for citizenship. We're doing it completely online with this amazing company. So it's going really well. It's a small class size. We're learning a lot. And if you want to know more, you can email me about it.
Yeah, but we will be basically recording after each session that we have. And in general, it's Monday through Friday. There are holidays that pop up, and there are medical emergencies that the teacher might have.
Not a bad one. I mean, chip tooth.
Dentist.
Not like,
So those things might interrupt. And then maybe, just maybe, Kalie and I might have to miss a lesson or two. And we can either make that up, or we do have the flexibility, or anyone who takes these courses does have the flexibility to miss. I think it's up to 10% of the hours, so like 15 hours. Right. So you need to complete 150, but if you complete 135,
you pass.
Nobody's gonna be mad.
You pass as far as the requirement goes for attendance.
Correct.
Okay, so that's what's going on in the world of Expats Everywhere, but should we get to the chat today that I have with Diogo?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was sitting on the other side of the computer while you were having this podcast, and I was working, so I had headphones on. I didn't really hear what was going on. So it's like top 5
well, not necessarily top 5. Well, let me just say this. So there have been a lot of changes with immigration over the past couple of years with a lot of things. The golden visa, for example, the D7 and the D8, splitting pretty much passive versus active income. So a lot of changes. And at the beginning of the year, there was a change as well for those who want to get citizenship. It's a positive change, but we talk about what that change was to help. And then in June, there were a lot more. There were actually 41 things that were passed. But we, of course, don't talk about all of them. Some of them are kind of insignificant or smaller or clumped in with others. But we talk about the main 5-ish things that changed in June. All very positive for us. That's a good thing. Like, they're trying to be more efficient with things.
Yeah.
So there are some positive, forward-moving things that are happening with immigration. So we speak with an immigration lawyer about what those are because that just happened.
Okay. Anything about NHR? Because that has just come up this week about how things have happened. So do you discuss that?
We did not touch on NHR. We talked about it off camera as maybe another thing to talk about because that's kind of a loaded thing, and there's a lot going on right now where people are saying it's back, it's not back, it never left, but nothing's been passed.
What about for people who don't know what NHR means? What is NHR?
Do you want to explain it?
Not really. I mean, it stands for non-habitual resident, and that means nothing to us, just hearing what is non-habitual resident. But there's a tax scheme or tax regime that was meant to incentivize migration to Portugal. It was available. Is available for non-Portuguese or Portuguese. Basically, the criteria is that you couldn't have been a resident of Portugal or Portuguese tax-paying citizen for the past 5 years. So you had to be out of the country, moving back into the country. So they were incentivizing people to move back into the country. And depending on the source of income, depends on how much taxes you paid. And this, assuming that it was the right income source, would have drastically reduced your taxes away from the progressive tax scale, which is notoriously high.
Yeah.
For at least for medium or high income earners.
And it would be good for 10 years. But so then it's like it went away. Are they reinstating it? Is there NHR 2.0? So there are a lot of things going on, murmurs and such, but nothing's actually been passed, is something good to know. So I think we will be talking with people who know what's going on soon, but right now there's not much to say is really how that is. So we didn't talk about those issues. We talked about some other really important issues going on with immigration, you know, the CEF-IMA thing, getting through to IMA.
Yeah.
Really
And it's
good
things
stuff.
that impact people who are already here and people who are planning to be here.
Yes.
For sure.
Whatever stage that you're in, there's something in here for everyone.
Yeah.
So let's get to it, yeah?
Let's do it.
Let's chat
I'm
with
interested
Diogo.
to hear exactly what he said because I only heard like subcategories. Let's roll it.
Diogo, I'm really excited to chat with you today because there have been a lot of changes with immigration, and we need an expert to talk to about these changes. So it's changes for people who are already here and what's next, and then it's also for those who are in the planning process and how to get to Portugal. So first of all, if you could just introduce yourself for our listeners, and then we'll jump into these different immigration changes that have been happening.
Thanks for having me here. I'm an immigration lawyer for more than 10 years. It's Lamarche Capella and Associados. We are a law firm based in Lisbon, and we deal with immigration, citizenship, real estate, corporate tax, and all other matters that are also linked with the immigration processes. And throughout all these years, we have been helping, assisting clients from all around the world to achieve their goals to invest in the country or even to relocate with their families to Portugal.
Okay, great. So, like I was saying, there have been a lot of changes in immigration, and we can't cover all of them that have been happening in the last, let's say, 6 months or so. But we're going to cover some of the top ones and some really important things to know that'll be, again, really helpful for those who are already here, like us, because I have some questions for you, especially when it comes to citizenship, right? And applying for citizenship, because that is coming up for us next year. So we'll get to that. But then also for those who have immigration questions on, you know, visas and what has changed and what's going on with the CEF-IMA switchover, right? So we're going to talk about some of those top things. So I'm going to give you the floor. On the first one, what's the first topic that you think we should talk about?
I think there's a lot of them actually, but I do believe that in probably the one that is not topic right now is the action plan that was conceived by the new government. Actually, there's 41 measures that were announced at the beginning of June by this new government to act on all the immigration processes. And I do believe that there's more or less 5 measures that can be addressed here because they are very important and they of course can impact people's lives. And so I do believe that the first, and it was very important amendment in the immigration law, was the fact that the government has decided to finish with the expression of interest process. And I would say that this is a very bold move from the government. Actually, things were not very well on that particular procedure. Actually, there's a huge backlog and lots of pendencies from this kind of processes right now. We are talking about 400,000, more than 400,000 pendencies for the expression of interest process. And so the government has decided to just cancel that procedure, which was not working so well, and avoid people to establish their presence, their life in Portugal without a visa, a prior visa. And so they are not able nowadays to legalize themselves when coming as tourists to Portugal. Because as you know, there's two different ways to, or they were two different ways for people to relocate to Portugal. The most common one would be to get a residence visa in the consulate of their country of residence or citizenship before they arrive to Portugal, and here they would attend an appointment with the immigration agency and get the residence card afterwards. But there was also the possibility for the expression of interest when people were coming to Portugal as tourists, and here they would get a work contract, a service agreement with a company based in Portugal, and they would go directly to the immigration agency in order to get the residence permit, skipping the first step of getting the visa priorly. It's no longer possible, and the government is now trying to strengthen also the response from the consular network in Portugal in order to address all the requests and applications for the visas.
Okay.
I think that would make a huge impact for people that are already in Portugal, and they are now probably figuring out what to do next if they didn't make the move first to submit the expression of interest. But later on, we can also speak about that.
Okay. So that was put into effect immediately in June. Like they
Right.
just, that's it. They've stopped issuing those.
Exactly.
Okay.
It was
Okay.
announced in June, and the president has just ratified that new amendment, and so it's now in force. So it's no longer possible for new applications.
Okay. So if someone was thinking about coming to Portugal as a tourist and then finding work and using this procedure, that's no longer available. Now you definitely have to do the visa prior, like the D7,
Right.
the D8 in your home country, which I think a lot of our listeners, that's what they did because most are coming in, whether retired or remote workers. So they wouldn't come here and try to find a job. But I do know we have a lot of, Brazilian friends, and that was a route that I think a lot of Brazilians would take, right? They would come in and then try to find work and then go ahead and use this. But then there's just been such a big backlog that it's been an issue, right? So they just did away with it. Okay.
Right.
So now for our listeners, it's just good to know that you have to just do everything from your home country prior. So if you're going to do the D7, D8 anyway, or D2 or anything like that, then this doesn't affect you. But if you were going to come here and then try to find work and then use this procedure, that is no longer available, correct?
That's right. That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Great. All right. So then what's next? What's another change?
Also, I've just talked about the dependencies, and it's important to understand that the government has also announced a task force. They are planning to solve all dependencies until next year, June next year, actually. And so they are putting more people involved in dealing with all these applications. We are talking about more or less 300 people will be involved on making this plan to happen. I do think that this is important because people probably have heard about the backlog in the immigration agency nowadays. That was due to several factors. People ask me all the time, why is this happening? And actually, there is several factors that contributed to this over time. The war between Ukraine and Russia, also the fact that there was a new structure for the immigration agency. Before was SEF, now it's IMA, and so they have changed, and all the restructuring on the immigration agency took a little bit more time than it should, and so all of this contributed throughout this time for dependencies, and also because, as you know, Portugal has become very attractive for foreigners, and there's a lot of people trying to come, and there's a lack of human resources to actually follow that trend. And so we need to readapt, and I think the new government is trying to do that, making this happening through or putting more people into work, getting them or making them more active on dealing with dependencies. And I do think that reinforcing IMA's human and technological resources will be a priority. And throughout this year, we will definitely see some changes, and good news will come for sure. And so throughout this time, and I think that would be the last measure that also that I would also wanted to cover here, because I do think that is also important. And the plan for the government is to prioritize family reunification processes, and processes related with high qualified professionals and students, people that were actually living in Portugal already, or they are here and they are not having any way to get an appointment with the immigration agency due to the backlog, and also due to the fact that the immigration agency has no slots available for new appointments. And they are making this as a priority, so people can become legal in Portugal, and not staying here without any permit or any appointment whatsoever.
Okay. So these pending applications, that is the massive backlog. In what stage are these applications pending? Are they like, for example, someone, if we're speaking about an American is doing a D7 visa, they are in the US, they go through VFS or the consulate there, and they get approved, but maybe then they're not assigned an IMA appointment, and then they come over to Portugal. Is this the type of pending application you're talking about, or are there several different types of pending applications
There's
that are just
several
out there?
different types. Yes,
Okay.
the 400K that I was talking about was more related with the expression of interest process.
Okay.
But there's also some people that they are not pending because they are not even in a position when they have started their application throughout AIMA. And so what they are doing right now is trying to settle an appointment with the immigration agency, which is not been easy, and sometimes it's impossible to get because there's no agenda. So it's they just reply all the time saying there's no way to book any appointment right now because we are fully booked.
Yeah.
So it's impossible. People are trying to make that. It's possible to do it through a phone call, but sometimes it's even impossible to reach out to someone on the phone and get the appointment. So situation is quite critical on this regard, and I do think that the new government will also try to reestablish normality here, but will be quite difficult without this task force that they are planning to have, because of course there's so many appointments already settled, but also people that are waiting in the line, let's say, for them to get the appointment, that it's becoming a little bit chaotic for newcomers that have no appointment already settled by the VFS or by the consulate to actually get appointments. What I normally advise people to do is try all the time, because sometimes there's some cancellations. We deal with this type of process all the time. Like we have clients that reach out to us asking for some assistance in order to get their appointments. And the way we do it is by constantly trying to book the appointment all the time, so we can get a cancellation from anyone else and try to book the appointment for them.
Okay. So if someone is having this issue, then they can contact you and you can assist with trying to get this appointment.
Yes, they can.
Okay. And is the goal then, I mean, obviously we're moving in a good direction. It's positive that they're creating this task force. There's more people who are working to help, get rid of this backlog. And the goal is to have this backlog kind of cleaned up and moving forward for in like next year. By the time June 2025, they're hoping to have everything cleared out.
Correct. That's
Okay.
that's their goal, and they were very convincing when they announced that goal. I do think that the plan is already in course, and they have the enough data to support this kind of date. So I do think that this will happen.
Okay, that's good, because sometimes it seems like a law will go into effect, but it's not enforced right away, or it takes a bit time to get going. But it sounds like they've already are moving in the right direction, and it's already going. So that's really
Correct,
good.
correct. One good
Okay.
thing that also it's kind of linked with this, and since we are going to also address the citizenship processes um, uh, after, I also do think that it's important to for people to understand that at the beginning of the year in January, the citizenship law has changed in a way that you no longer need to wait until you get the residence card in order to start counting the 5 years to get the or to access the Portuguese citizenship through the length of stay in Portugal. And so what was happening was people were waiting for about 2 years sometimes to get the residence cards, and they just started to count the 5 year long period from the date of the issuance of the residence card. This is no longer like that. Actually, since January, the law has changed, and so you start counting the 5 years from the time you started your immigration process. So even the time when you actually submitted the application throughout the VFS or throughout the consulate, you will start counting the time for you to get the citizenship from that time. And so you no longer need to be afraid that all this backlog will affect your citizenship process or your goal to have the Portuguese passport afterwards, since you, even if with all the administrative backlog, all the dependencies, your time to get in access the passport will start counting from the time you actually begun your immigration process.
Okay, this is a great one, because we know people who, right, they arrive and they don't have their appointment until 6 months later, right? Or you're saying 2 years even. So you imagine you're living here, but then you can't start, in that 5 year process until, your residency card, it's on, the back there, the date. So this is a really great one. So for us, let's say we moved here in 2020, and we had our VFS appointment. I think it was like August or something of 2020. And then we didn't actually arrive in Portugal till October of 2020. Then, after everything was processed, but then we didn't have at that point, with Steph, we didn't have that appointment until January of 2021. So on the back of our card, it would say January 2021. So you would think, okay, 5 years from that would be January 2026. But now with this new law, we can work backwards. So you're saying that it's not the time we entered in October, but it's the time that we had our VFS appointment in
Correct.
August?
In August, exactly. So you can go back to August 2020 and start counting the 5 years from there. And so in August 2025, you will be able to submit your Portuguese citizenship application. Of course, will be necessary to deal with the requirements for that, but in that sense, everything remains the same. You will need to have a basic level of Portuguese language, like A2 level. It's the only time you actually need to show that. It's when you're submitting the application for the Portuguese citizenship. There's no interview nor nothing. People sometimes think that this is kind of a US style, but kind of interview and things like that. You don't actually need to do so much. You need just to present the documents to show your knowledge of Portuguese, basic knowledge, A2 level, like I was saying, and also the documents to support your citizenship application. Basically, you will need to show that you have stayed in Portugal for more than, or you have initiated your immigration process for more than 5 years, and so you are living in Portugal throughout this time. and in a way that you are eligible to obtain the Portuguese citizenship. The process for you to get the Portuguese passport will will take more or less between 1.5 up to 2 years, more or less. Okay, it's what currently it's what's happening. We don't know if this will be reduced or not. We do think so. There was time that was way less than this, but once again, due to the fact that there's so many people interested on getting the Portuguese citizenship, and human resources did not follow this trend, that the backlog is also applicable to the citizenship process. But later on, as soon as you get the passport, you no longer need to spend more time in Portugal, nor to comply with minimum periods of stay, and you have all the same rights as I do as a Portuguese citizen, and you can travel within the Schengen area freely. You can live in other countries as an EU citizen. You can work there, and basically you can do everything as a normal Portuguese citizen can do.
And no having to deal with IMA anymore, right?
Correct. That's a very big
Plus.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
definitely. Okay, and then you and your company assist with this type of citizenship and applying for citizenship,
Yes,
right?
we do.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Well, Josh and I are currently doing Portuguese lessons to get our A2 certification, and by next year, next August, it looks like we'll be applying, which is really exciting for us.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, so then we wait a year and a half or so. I mean, maybe with the way that they're, they have this task force and they're catching up on stuff, maybe they'll catch up on that as well. But that's not a priority, really. It's some of the other visa stuff that's more of a priority for catching up on that.
Right now, it's the priority. That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And you were saying that one of the priorities is the family reunification, D6, right? Because there's a lot of people who come over on that. And then the family, what happens? They're just stuck. They have to, like, if someone comes over and does family reunification, but they're still waiting on the residency to finalize, they have to stay in Portugal?
There are two different ways to get the family reunification process done. One is doing all of this with the family members outside Portugal. And so the main applicant will come to Portugal, establish their residency here, get the residence card, and only after doing that, the family member can start the process for reunite the family members that are outside Portugal. We normally don't advise clients to do that because it takes very long time, and there are some situations, dramatic situations, where people are separated for their families for long periods. And so this is not something people want, of course. And there's two other different ways, actually. I said there was two, but there's actually three ways to get it. The most appropriate one is then when the main applicant is starting the immigration process in the consulate. At a consulate, what they can do is to bring their family members all together. And so it's like a family process, and that can be done all at the same time. And without any need for the main applicant to come alone, and all family will come together, will attend the appointment with the immigration agency in Portugal, basically all together as well, or very close to each other. And so that would be the best option in my perspective. The last one, and that was something that was happening very often, was before this new way to get the family reunion was approved. People were coming to Portugal with their residence cards, and they would bring their family members as tourists. Because they didn't want to wait for all this time for them to get the visas outside, and wait for a long period without them or being separated, and so they would bring their family, but as tourists. And so when the residence permit was granted to the main applicant, they would be able to make an appointment or book an appointment for the family members. But as I told, it's almost impossible to get the appointments nowadays directly in Portugal. And it depends also on the type of residence permits that we are talking about. And in this particular case, for family reunion, it was even it was more difficult than all the other types of residence permits. And so we have cases of family members that are staying in Portugal, waiting for their time to book the appointment, and they are here for about 2, even 3 years to get that.
Wow.
Actually, it was a very a huge problem that also brought some very recent decision from the Supreme Administrative Court in Portugal that has decided very recently, actually, that it's now, it was in June as well, for people that have made or that are already established in Portugal, or they have submitted the expression of interest, or for people that are waiting for more than 90 days for a decision from IMA, they can IMA should make a decision within 90 days. So what the Supreme Court has decided was in fact what is written on the law, but IMA was not making, which was to make a decision within 90 days, which will impact very deeply the processes ongoing, and also family members that are waiting for more than 90 days here, and in a situation that sometimes is very difficult for them, and harmful in sometimes when they are of course sometimes a target for employers, and that use this as an advantage to not grant all the rights that they have according to the Portuguese law.
Ah, okay. All right. So they have, the court is saying that IMA has 90 days to do something. And then what happens? And they're going to actually enforce this. So then if someone's caught up in this, what's the process then to make sure that they are going through the court, or that they can ensure that IMA only takes 90 days on their application?
Actually, what I advise our clients to do right now, when they are in these kind of situations, they are waiting in Portugal for a decision of IMA for more than 90 days, or family members are waiting for more than 90 days in Portugal without any appointment whatsoever. When, of course, we will need to look into the situation for each kind of client, but when they meet the requirements, let's say, we would suggest that they submit a subpoena before the administrative court in Portugal, using the Supreme Court's decision in order to force IMA to grant a decision within 90 days. And it's actually working, which is good. Of course, and I understand people don't want to start their relocation process, or they don't want to start their connection with the immigration, with the administrative administration in Portugal, or the Portuguese government, with the subpoena. It's or a lawsuit against IMA, of course. But there's actually the best way to get their processes finished, and everything will be done without jeopardizing ongoing processes. And so people can be relaxed that this will not impact in a negative way their applications nor impact in any way their relationship with the administration afterwards. So we definitely advise clients, and we have been successful on doing this, because so we are here to express that as a good solution nowadays for people that are waiting for more than 90 days in the country, or actually they have started their relocation process for more than 90 days and they are waiting for IMA to decide on their processes, to actually start a subpoena so they can be granted with the residence cards and finish their processes.
Okay. That's a good point, that it doesn't affect your application status or whether you get denied or approved or anything, because I think some people might be like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't want to, push buttons or, make waves." But it's also true that you want to, move here and live here, and you don't want the headache of all this bureaucracy and paperwork. But if that happens, there are at least outlets that are trying to make it easier for you. And hopefully, again, after this year, putting these in place, that it's running smoother, right? Moving forward, after we can get the backlog and the issues all sorted. Okay, great. So then what are some other things that, these 41 different measures that were taken? Are there any other things that you want to highlight for
I
those?
think I have covered the most important ones for people that are planning to relocate and live here. Also, one of the other measures is to create a court specialized with immigration and asylum processes. And so I do think that this will also make a difference on IMA and how to approach these kind of processes, because when you have a court and judges specialized on these kind of subjects, things tend to be a little bit more appropriate to the client situation, and so, or to the applicant situation. So it's important to have this specialization even in the courts, so we can address all the immigration processes in the best way possible. And so I do think that courts will have a very important role in the immigration processes in the future. And also IMA will also address things differently as soon as there are some decisions made by the court expressing how the IMA will need to deal with, or must deal with, some specific processes. Actually, I'm very positive on the impact on this. There are some people that are kind of afraid that this will bring more litigation, but I do think that also it's important to understand that people's rights need to be covered, and the best way to do it is using the court. It's in Portugal and anywhere else in the world. When you need to make your rights, of course, when you need to have someone or some entity to make them into force, you go to court, and so they can decide and push other entities to act in accordance with the law. So I think that will be a very good measure also to address here, and to also will make a huge impact in people's lives.
Okay, right. So you have some extra support when it comes to immigration, whatever process, like wherever you are in the process, you do have that support that can help you. And then hopefully moving forward, it'll run a little more efficiently, and they can get the backlog out of the way, and then it process just goes faster, right? That would be the hope.
That's
Good.
right.
And you help, you assist clients you have in any stage, right? Any stage, whether it's the beginning part, getting ready to apply, whether you're here and having issues, whether you want to renew, that you help with all that, right?
Yes, we do. We deal with all types of immigration processes and citizenship processes. And besides, if people want to have some legal expert assisting them with other subjects related with real estate, corporate tax, we can also do that, of course.
Okay, great. Well, listener, if you would like to be put in touch with Diogo, then you can email me at info@expatseverywhere.com and I will introduce you. Diogo, thank you so much for telling us a little bit about what's going on with the immigration today. And we look forward to seeing it become more efficient for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, let's hope so. I hope so. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.